Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Birds are often a beautiful addition to any backyard or garden. We're going to talk about attracting them with bird feeders and bird baths. Also, today, we're going to define garden terms. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Debbie Bruce. Ms. Debbie is the owner of Wild Birds Unlimited, and Dr. Lilia Kelly is here with us. Dr. Kelly is a horticulture specialist with Mississippi State Extension. Thanks for joining me, ladies.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. All right, Ms. Debbie, let's talk about bird feeders. And as you can see, our table full of bird feeders.
Yes, it is. Any time of the year is a fun time to watch the birds in your backyard. And with just a little bit of effort, depending on your habitat, meaning your trees and shrubs, you can attract 35, 40 species with just a little effort over a year's time.
Wow.
I did bring some feeders to show you different varieties.
Okay.
Probably the most traditional would be a seed feeder. It's a hopper. You just open it up, pour your loose seed in, and the birds will fly in to eat.
Okay.
But you also have other birds in your yard that are not traditional seed eaters. Some of them might like suet. Your woodpeckers would cling to this tail prop. This simulates the side of a tree.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they'll put their tail against it and peck out pieces of suet, which is rendered beef fat.
Okay.
Very nutritious for them. Not just woodpeckers, though. All the little clinging birds, such as your nuthatch, your chickadees, your wrens would like it as well. Suet can be presented in cylinders, logs, which has become very popular and very easy to do. In the summertime, we tend to think about hummingbirds. Your hummingbird feeders, if you have trouble with ants, you want to attach an ant moat, an ant trap to catch those ants so they don't contaminate the water.
Okay.
Most important on all your feeders is to keep them clean. Change out that feeder regularly. Take a little port brush and clean out the port so the hummingbirds have clean feeding area. Not only do we have hummingbirds in the summer times, we have a number of fruit eaters. Depending on your habitat, you might have orioles, tanagers that would come and eat grape jelly or screw on an apple or a half an orange onto here. Cardinals love fruit, so do blue jays, mockingbirds, which we have all year round in your cardinals. Woodpeckers like it too. One of the most popular food sources are mealworms. Live mealworms.
They are alive.
They are alive. You want some?
Not this time. I think I'll pass.
They are a high protein food source. You keep them refrigerated until you put them out. You only put a small quantity out at a time, and you'll train your birds, or your birds will train you, to put them out, and you'll attract all different varieties. Not only do the adult birds eat them, but they take them back to the nest for the nestlings.
Cool, okay.
So that's just a few of the feeders, but having said about the importance of keeping clean, you do need to clean all your feeders at least once a month.
Okay. And how do you go about cleaning some of these other feeders? I mean, water?
We use hot water.
Hot water. Okay.
We use a dishwashing detergent.
Okay.
We use final rinse water, 1 part of bleach to 9 parts of water, and that'll kill any bacteria. Okay. And get you a good brush. A brush will scrub out some of the things that are holding on to the sides of the feeder.
Okay. And what about our peanuts here?
Oh, I almost forgot about that.
Let's not forget about the peanuts.
Peanuts are extremely desirable to the birds. This one is designed for birds to cling onto and peck out little pieces of the peanuts. You can add a tray to the feeder, and birds such as your Your mockingbirds, your blue jays, your cardinals would sit on the tray and peck it out. If you didn't want to use a hopper for your loose seed, you can also use a tube feeder that just fills from the top. This one you only have 2 birds at a time, where sometimes with your hopper feeder, you can get multiple birds.
Okay. How many of these do you have in your own yard? I'm pretty sure you probably have a lot of feeders, right?
I probably have one variety or one selection of each variety here, and on the seed, multiple.
Wow.
And on the hummingbird right now, multiple.
Multiple. Okay. Now, what about the bird baths?
Oh, bird baths. Oh my goodness. You can attract twice as many birds to your yard with water and seed or food than just food alone.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Bird baths usually come, the most popular is pedestal. They're usually about 36 inches tall, give or take a few inches. And I brought an example of a ground bath on that frame.
Nice.
A ground bath is near the ground, so you're mimicking nature.
Okay.
In nature, birds are going to go to the ground in puddles, in ponds, in lakes and rivers to get their water. Ground baths are great unless you have a cat that frequents your yard.
Okay.
Then you might want to go to the hanging bath,
Sure.
which hangs off of chains or ropes, and you can hang that from a tree or a feeder pole. But keep in mind, that's not mimicking nature,
right.
so it's going to take longer for your birds to discover that bath.
Okay.
Not all baths are made equal. They're not all made with birds in mind. Some folks might have a bath that is too deep, and you want a bath that's 2 inches or less. If your bath is too deep, you can shallow it by just placing rocks within the bath. If you're a small bird, or maybe a fledgling soon out of the nest, and you get into deep water and can't get out, you're gone.
Oh,
you're
you
gone.
drown. Oh.
Now, one way to make it much more enticing is to add moving water.
Okay.
The apparatus on the side of that bath is a dripper mister. It connects to your outside faucet, and that's going to drip into the bath, and that movement of the ripples is going to attract the birds. It won't allow mosquitoes to breed because it is moving,
Okay.
and it's going to replenish your water source. So that's very attractive to them. Birds find their water by sight and by sound. The next item in that green tray is a rock waterfall. It runs off of electricity, and it can sit in any bird bath that's 2 inches or less. You plug it in, and it just recirculates in a pump in there and makes all kinds of sound. There again, mosquitoes can't breathe,
Right.
but it's a bird magnet.
So what about cleaning out our bird baths?
That's important to do as well, because you have sludge and contaminants that'll build up in it. We do have enzymes that are safe for the birds.
Okay.
They're bacterial enzymes that you pour into your bath. You start off with a clean bath. By cleaning it, you'd use that 9-part of water, 1 part of bleach, and a stiff brush. Clean it all out so you don't have the algae in the crevices of the bath. Refill it up and then put your Carefree enzyme into it.
Okay.
And that helps to eat the gunk and the algae that builds up. But if you are really diligent about cleaning your bath every 2-3 days, give it a good hosing every time you're watering your plants, you shouldn't have any trouble.
Okay, so no problems at all.
As long as you stay on top of it.
All right, and we were trying to mimic nature.
That's right.
Okay? Didn't realize birds would go to lower places. Yeah.
I
that's
have
good to
more
know.
attendance on my lower bath than I do on the taller ones.
Okay.
And it is so fun to watch the birds bathe. It's very therapeutic, and it's even more fun to watch them groom. So you can take broken tree branches, dead branches, stick them in the ground near your bath, and that'll encourage your birds to stay in the area, to fly to the branch and sit there and groom.
All right.
So you can watch the birds and enjoy them even more.
How about that? Well, thank you, Ms. Debbie, for the information. We definitely appreciate that.
You're welcome.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Dr. Kelly, gardening terms. You do a lot of presentations. I do a lot of presentations. We both write articles for newspapers.
Right.
We always include all these big, nice, wonderful gardening terms. So let's start off with some gardening terms, shall we?
All right.
All right, here's the first. Species versus genus. She says.
We go into the binomial
Yeah.
nomenclature.
That's right.
Carl Linnaeus started all
Linnaeus.
that business years and years ago. But species, when you talk about a species versus a genus, when you look at the classification of a plant, you know, it starts out in the kingdom and the phyla, and it goes all the way down, you know, to the exact species, which is a two-part name. Now, the genus is the first part of that name. For example, Magnolia grandiflora.
Okay.
And see, magnolia is, you can talk about magnolias inclusively to mean star magnolias, southern magnolias, saucer magnolias. If you just say magnolia, you're saying the whole genus of all of those different species. The species is that two-part name. For example, Magnolia grandiflora. You know exactly that that's our southern magnolia. If you said Magnolia stellata, that's our star magnolia, and so on down we go. And the genus just happens to be also the common name, you know, for magnolia. A lot of our genus names we use as common names, like viburnum, ligustrum, or maybe you and I do, Chris.
Yeah, we do.
I don't know whether.
Well, since we have the genus and species, then what about the cultivar?
Cultivar. Well,
that
that's
one?
even down even
That's
a little
down
further. Yeah. So, for example, Magnolia grandiflora, Little Jim.
Little Jim.
Little Jim. That is a cultivated variety, and that's what cultivar stands for. It's cultivated variety. Cultivar. You get it? So you know. But that's, and it's usually written with single quotes around it. So you would go Magnolia grandiflora, single quote, Little Jim. That means that's the cultivar, Little Jim. And then you would have, what's another one?
There's a green giant.
Yeah.
Sure
And
Goliath.
yeah. And I'm trying to think of, like in flowers too, you know, there's all kind of cultivars in flowers. Like, Laura, let me think about daylilies. You know, they have all these named varieties, cultivated varieties of daylilies. So that gets it down to the exact cultivated variety. So that's what it is, cultivated
Good deal.
variety, yeah.
Now, how about this next one? Miss Debbie probably knows a little bit about the next one. So perennial versus biennial versus annual.
Yeah.
How about that one?
Yeah.
And everybody's probably familiar with
Everybody
that.
probably knows that. The one they may not know, but it's pretty easy to figure out, is the biennial. You know, that perennial is a plant that comes back from the root or the base every year. And people will say, well, that's not just the herbaceous, you know, part that has the root that's what's perennial, because it's going to live. In other words, a perennial is a plant that will live forever unless you kill it, you know, like a tree.
Right.
A tree, botanically speaking, is a perennial because it lives on and on and on. Now, something that is a biennial completes its life cycle in 2 years. We have several that do it, like parsley is one. It's a biennial. A lot of people will say, well, my parsley, it did really good and had all this pretty foliage and everything that first summer, and the next spring it shot up a flower stalk and
that was
died.
it. Yep, that
What
was
did I do wrong? Well, you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
That's what's programmed into that plant because it is a biennial. Mullein, one of our native, well, it's not native, but you'd think it's native, but it was introduced from Europe. It's sort of a wildflower kind of thing, grows around on the ditch banks and stuff, but it's biennial.
Yeah.
Queen Anne's lace. Yeah, Queen Anne's lace
right.
blooming now.
Sure
it's a
is.
biennial as well. And annual then, obviously, is, you know, like a bedding plant, something that will grow in one season, set seed, and die. One growing season. Whether
growing
that's
season.
the fall, the spring, summer, whenever it is, it's programmed to complete its life cycle in one growing season.
Okay.
That's called an annual.
Call an annual. So there
Yep.
you have it. All right, here's our next one. Hardiness.
Hardiness.
Always a good
Well, that's what we are, right? We're pretty hardy, yeah.
Pretty hardy.
But when you think about plants and you use the term hardiness, what you're referring to typically is cold hardiness. You know, the hardiness of that plant to cold temperatures. And our plant zones, our USDA plant zones, are based on that cold hardiness, you know, for we're in what? What do we hear? In Memphis, we're zone 7?
Yeah, 7.
Aren't we 7? So that's what.
Some would say 7B.
Yeah. So that means we could only grow plants that were hard, supposedly, that were only hardy from 0 to 10 degrees. That's as low as they could take. That single digits in there is all they would stand. And you know we're always pushing the limit on that. You know, so that's what it is. It's the hardness of the plant to withstand cold temperatures. And as you know, we can grow things down here, they can't grow up north. Well, you know, obviously because we have warmer winters. And then if you think about another hardiness, you know, there's another zone map that is a heat zone map. And I know you're familiar with that, Chris, but it's based on, basically it's the United States rated on how many days above 86 degrees does that region have. And I think Jackson, Mississippi has like 4 months.
Memphis is not too far behind.
No, and you go up to Seattle and they have maybe 2 weeks, you know. So, and it's mainly, that kind of hardiness mainly has an impact on our herbaceous plants.
Right.
You know, that like hostas and things like that really just do wonderfully well in Seattle, Washington, and get nearly as big as half this table. And down here, the heat they struggle. You know, they really just don't. So that's a heat hardiness.
Okay. Chill hours.
Okay, that's typically referring to the number of hours below a certain cold temperature that is required before fruit trees will flower and bear fruit. It could be just fruit tree, it could be a flowering plant. You know, I think, like for example, the encore azaleas.
Okay.
You know, they kind of bred that out of them because they don't know, they don't have the chilling requirements as much anymore. They just bloom sporadically throughout, you know, the season. But the chill hours are typically used to describe fruit trees. You know, like peach, you pick your peach variety or your apple variety based on where you are, because if you have a cultivar that, let's say, has a certain number of chill hours, and those chill hours are met, let's say it had to be just arbitrarily 30 hours below 40 degrees, okay? And you had this peach tree and it all of a sudden you get that requirement met, and it's too early, and it blooms out too early. So then what's going to happen? It's going to get nipped by the frost, and it's going to kill the flowers. So that's why chilling hours are very important for people who grow fruit trees, to know they're picking the right cultivar with the right chilling requirements so that they don't bloom out early and the blooms get killed. And that's what happens sometimes when the Bradford pears and some of these other things bloom really fast in the spring, and you think, what's it blooming now? Well, the chilling hours were met. They'll be blooming at Christmas. You're going, what's that stupid thing? It's crazy. Well, the chilling hours got met.
All right. Well, we got through the chill hours. Thank you, Doc.
No, that was a big one.
Good. That was good. Now, here's our Q&A session. And Ms. Debbie, you jump in there with us if you have something to say, okay?
Okay.
All right. Doc, here's our first viewer email.
Okay.
Billy, I put 2 to 3 inches of ground hardwood mulch in my flower beds. If mulch stops weeds, will bulbs be able to punch through the mulch in the spring? Like that.
Yeah.
Sure they will.
Sure they will. They definitely will.
Yeah, they will gather the energy needed,
you
know, to push up through your mulch.
They definitely will,
Yeah,
and they can push
that.
up. Yeah, they can even push up the side of a little stone sometimes.
I've
you
seen
know.
that.
So yeah, a plant's going to come up through mulch, definitely.
They're going to be able to do that.
Hurt it. Yeah.
Look, if they can come up through this clay, you know, I'm sure they can come up through this mulch.
That's exactly
But right, you know, and we thank you for that question, Mr. Billy. But again, it's going to gather enough, you know, energy, you know, within that bulb itself to push right through the mulch.
It's not going to
be a problem.
Not going to be a problem. No.
Not going to be a problem at all. All right, so here's our second viewer email. We have 2 3-year-old blueberry bushes that are full of berries this year. We planted them too close to a fence. We need to move them away from the fence about 4 feet. When can we move the blueberry bushes to ensure we have berries next year? And this is Miss Judy in Ecro, Mississippi. How about that? Ecro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I do like the fact, Miss Julie, that you know that you're gonna have to move those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She needs, and she figured it out early on
did.
because if they're just 3 years old, they're not really probably real huge. So then the best time to move them is when they're dormant.
Right.
You know, so wait, and I know she's anxious to go ahead and do it
Probably
now, but
is.
she needs to be eating her blueberries and enjoying her blueberries and wait until the dead of winter, let's say January probably, you know, late December. And then while it's completely dormant, then she should be able to dig them up and move them, and there should be no problems.
I agree. And here's something else, Doc, and correct me if I'm wrong. I always like to tell people, have that site prepared before you
Sure.
move it.
Good point. Yeah, very good point.
So yeah, get that
Yeah.
site prepared, and then, you know.
That's right, because it may be cold out there, and she'll
may
want to not have to, you know, she won't have to work in her soil so long. She's got it already ready.
right.
She can just go out there and yank them up, stick them in their new home, and they'll be good.
It'll be just fine.
That's
All right, Miss
right.
Judy. Here's our next one. Oh, we got some good questions. I just planted several Nellie Stevens holly plants in April. In May, they were showing healthy signs of new growth. I was away for about 4 weeks, and when I returned in June, this is how they looked. They have some type of infestation. Yellow leaf spotting, and something is eating the new growth leaves. Can I use an insecticidal soap and neem oil for this? Or do you have any suggestions? And this is Cindy in Midtown, Memphis. Let me get first crack at this one, Doc, okay? So
You have these at your house too,
well,
right?
I actually have these, but they were planted in April, okay?
Right.
So I actually, expect some signs of stress, which could be the yellowing of the leaves.
Right.
Okay, so that's, to me, is expected. Now, as far as the eating of the leaves, I think that's the two-lined spittle bug, okay? Because the spittle bug has chewing mouthparts, of course, and they're gonna be chewing the leaves. But here's the deal, they don't cause that much damage.
Right.
Yeah. Unless you have them in real high populations, I wouldn't worry about it. And if you have them in high populations, you can use neem oil or insecticidal soap, or just strong, a hose with some water and just knock them off. So that's what I suspect with that. But look, Nellie Stevens, they're tough.
They're real tough
They're tough.
hollies. Yeah.
So I think long term, Cindy, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, and if she's sprayed with neem, and if she's hitting the underside of the leaves,
Yeah.
it
Yeah, that's a
could
good
be
point.
that there may be some mealybugs or other things, or scale. Could be.
Could be.
And so the neem, she's doing the right thing. So I would just say watch the new growth, and if it's looking great, I'd say she cured her problem.
All right.
You know.
So there you have it, Cindy. So just be patient. Long
Yeah.
term, I think you're gonna be just fine. Okay. Here's our next one. You mentioned the sun-tolerant hostas. What is the specific name, and where can I buy them? And this is Truda. Carol Reese was here, and we actually talked about hostas. And we made mention of morning sun as opposed to the late afternoon sun, which is so hot,
Right.
here in Memphis. There's only one hosta that I know of that may survive late afternoon sun. And I learned this from Mr. Hosta himself, Mr. Larry Tucker, okay? Sum and Substance.
I've
It's an
heard
old
that.
standby, large leaves, thick leaves, okay? Can reflect some of the sunlight, okay? You can find it here in Shelby County. It's readily available at many of your nurseries. May survive is the question. I mean, it's the thing. It's the operative word. May survive. Because understand, hostas can deal with a little morning sun.
Yeah, they're shade plants.
Our afternoon sun here,
Yeah.
it just melts them away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sum and substance.
Yeah.
Sum and substance.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Would be the one. Again, it's an
That's an
old
old one,
standby.
yeah.
Grows pretty big. The leaves, about 15 to 18 inches.
Big,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
huge.
thick. But look, none of them want to be in our
No.
afternoon sun. It's just too hot. But you can't find it.
They
here
want to
the
be in
train.
Seattle, Washington.
Right, because we talked about the map, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about the
Yeah.
hardiness.
Yeah,
the
those
zone.
cool summers and, temperatures not up in the triple digits sometimes like we have, you
Yeah,
know?
it's just too hot here.
Yeah.
And make sure you do keep your hostas moist, okay, especially in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Miss Debbie, Dr. Kelly, we're out of time. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us a letter or an email with your gardening questions. Send your email to familyplot@wkno.org. The mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.